Hey everybody, how are you doing today? I'm Mikhaila Valletta. A lot of you know that, some of you may not. I am live on my backup IG account, Queen Lionessa, because my main IG account, The Renaissance Amazon, I can't go live on that page for some reason. I haven't been able to for months. So I'm going live on my backup account, and I'll repost it to my YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, be sure to follow my IG pages. And make sure to follow both of them. Anyhow, I hope you're all doing well. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm Mikhaila. I am also known as the Body Scientist. And I'm very much into holistic health in the body, the mind-body connection, taking our body to its highest level, right? And so when you're talking about taking your body to its highest level, you also have to deal with the mind, right? Because our mind tells our body what to do. Our brain tells our body what to do, okay? And, mental health and its connection with our physical body also plays a huge role. And so that's kind of what I want to get into today. There's been so much craziness happening in the world, probably always there's craziness. But, there's been a few things that's happened that has kind of, really touched me and kind of is very disturbing and close to home. And it just is a reminder to me of how, all of us will experience tragedy. All of us will experience pain in life. Some people's situations are a lot worse than others. Some people go through things that I don't know how they come back from it. And it's weird because you'll see things like, recently in the past month or so, there was two fires in the Bronx that killed a bunch of people. People lost, one man lost his wife and 3 kids. Another man lost his, the whole family, and you have people that go through horrific things like that. And interestingly, a lot of times the people that go through stuff like that, they don't end up killing themselves, right? And a lot of times the people that end up killing themselves are people that somebody on the outside looking in could be like, what was the problem? What was so bad? And so, but then when you have a deeper understanding of brain chemistry, right? And the structure of the brain, there are people who, sometimes the people have mental health problems. Sometimes there are things wrong with the structure of their brain. It's just like with CTE, right? You have these football players, and it's not just football players that suffer from this. It's also soccer. It's also boxing, right? But these football players who lost their mind, beating people up, killing themselves because their brain, when they look at their brain, the structure of their brain cells is different, right? So that, the structure of the brain, how the brain is firing, right? How it's firing and communicating, and the brain chemistry, like when somebody's hormones and the chemical neurotransmitters are off, how all those things can greatly change a person and make them act in a way that seems irrational or, just irrational, okay? And one of the harsh realities of life is that, again, nobody will get through this life without pain. Nobody will get through this life without experiencing death. Nobody will get through this life without, we never know what we're going to wake up to tomorrow, right? So to me, I look at life like a video game, right? I look at life like a video game. And I'm not even into video games, okay? I don't play video games. I haven't played video games since Super Mario Brothers in the 80s, okay? So I'm not into video games. But I'm just saying, and so when I think about video games and the basic level that I understand it, I don't know how they are now, right? But just the whole idea of doing certain things to get points, right? Certain things might take away points or take away certain powers. Other things give you points and give you certain powers and energy. Or you could slip and just fall and, you make one wrong move and now you're dead, right? So the way I live my life, it's first of all, staying in a place of constant gratitude, right? Because we all get tested, Okay. And for me, just thinking about, at any given moment, all the reasons I have to be thankful, because we all have shit, right? And again, some of our shit is worse than others. But then also, those of you who follow me, I'm really into health. So I don't take my health for granted, right? Because I was having a conversation with somebody last night, and we're both into working out and being healthy. And we were talking about having quality of life versus quantity, right? And I was like, I want both, quality and quantity, right? Because I want to live a long life. That's my goal, is to live a long time, okay? Dying in your 70s and your 80s, that's young. There are many people who live to 100 and past 100. And there are people who live that long who are also very mobile, and their brain is intact, right? And so that's a goal of mine. I want to live a long life. But also, quality also matters. I want to feel good. I don't want to live a long time and be suffering from chronic illnesses and I'm in pain every day and I feel like shit. I don't want to do that. That's torture, right? So I want my body to work. I want to have good sex for as long as I can, like all of those things. Be able to dance, right? Because dancing for me is, I always say there's many reasons why I dance. One of the main reasons why I dance is to transform energy, okay? And to help, it helps with my mental health, okay? We all have to have tools to be able to deal with trauma, okay? Because when traumatic things happen, if sometimes traumatic things happen and people just close up and they don't want to deal with it, they just kind of close up and try to numb themselves and keep on moving, and they don't process it and deal with that. That can leave traumatic imprints in our energy fields that then can be activated later. So you have people who were post-traumatic stress syndrome. You have people who are at war, right? And then they come home and they hear a sound or something happens and they spaz, right? Or you got people who have that kind of thing because they were sexually molested as a child or something, right? So you have these, and a lot of times when things happen to children, that's why it's so bad, because children is definitely will close up and not deal with it. They don't have the tools of how to process that. And so as an adult, I think it's really important to have tools to be able to transform energy, shake shit off, deal with the trauma, process it, get it off of you, right? So for me, dancing is one of those things that does that for me. And that's why it's been very hard, okay? Very hard since all this COVID shit. I shouldn't even said the word. But because I'm not dancing like I usually dance. And dancing is one of the things that keeps me sane, okay? With the type of shit, because, people don't, there's only people who are really close to me who know all the things that happen in my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm not somebody, I'm public, but I'm not, I don't tell the world everything. So it's like, one of the things in my life that has helped to really keep me sane when I'm going through something that's like, just sucking the life out of me, or it's just, very hard to deal with or traumatic or whatever, I would dance. I would go to my Haitian dance classes in New York, my Afro-Cuban dance classes, and my Afro-Brazilian, stomping feet, gyrating, shaking. The drums are there. The drums are loud. Okay? The dancing is exhausting, but there's a lot of shaking, gyrating, and undulating. There's a lot of complex movements. So my brain is so focused on what my shoulders are doing, what my feet are doing, what my hips are doing, what my head is doing, what my arms are doing. And changing direction and going this way and going that way. While the drums, you have several drums loud, okay? Those vibrations and all of that, it helps to change and then shaking the body helps to reset the energy fields. And so when I talk about the healing, the medicine and dances of the African diaspora, particularly in the Americas, okay, it's medicine. It's medicine that's overlooked. People talk so much about yoga, and yoga is great, it has its place. But when you are, stopping your feet, shaking your body in a polyrhythmic way, having consciousness in multiple parts of your body, that mind-body connection, the shaking and gyrating helping to reset energy fields, shake shit off of you, okay? Your mind, you can't be focused on whatever is bothering you when you're so focused on breathing. and doing these movements. You have these drums, these rhythms breaking shit up. You know what I'm saying? There's extreme healing medicine in it. I'm not going to get into a lecture about that, right? But I'm just saying. So now, in New York, in the Bay Area, that's where I take my classes. They have, vax mandates and a mask. I'm not doing that with a mask on. That's like playing basketball with a mask on. I'm not doing that, okay? So can't go to my dance classes in New York and the Bay. Then when it comes to go out dancing, I love to go out dancing in New Orleans. New Orleans New Orleans has my heart. New Orleans is one of my favorite places on earth, okay? On earth, period, point blank. If you've never been to New Orleans, you don't know what you're missing. Now, with that being said, New Orleans and New York were like, New Orleans, New York, and Havana, Cuba are my favorite places to go out dancing, where I feel like really, the music is really good. There's people that can dance their ass off. Like, I love that, right? New Orleans got mandates. Now, I haven't been to New Orleans since 2020, and I always went to New Orleans a few times a year. I will be going back this spring and just check the scene, but I don't like the fact that they have mandates too, right? So it was just making my dancing, it's like I could dance here in my apartment, but it's not the same thing. So, that is a tough one for me to deal with, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, okay, then going to the gym and lifting weights, another thing that helps me. And that's why it's like, okay, now you got mandates, you can't go to the gym, or they close the gyms. And so, I'm like, okay, I have to build a home gym, whatever. I'm just saying, like, this has been difficult because the things that I use, the tools that I've always had to help me transform energy, another one is weed, which is great. And so I would definitely be unhappy if I couldn't get access to that. But all those are the things that help to keep my energy balanced, right? Help me to transform, work through things. We have to. Because when people say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But that's not necessarily true. Sometimes what doesn't kill people makes them, leaves them as a subpar shell of themselves, where they're not fully present. They're in a weakened state, where they're just barely existing. That can happen too. Okay? It only makes you stronger if you do the work and help to transform that energy. Okay? Learn the lessons. Find a way to be sane, because like I said, some of the things that happen to some people, I don't know how they overcome that shit. Like somebody that loses 3 kids at once or something. That happens to people in life. You know what I'm saying? And putting that into perspective is what helps me a lot of times keep, my balance and sanity, because I've had traumatic things happen, but I haven't lost a family in a house fire. Horrible. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's just hard. Okay. So life is hard. I'm just going to say that, right? So we have to have tools to be able to deal with those things. But you never know people's story, right? You never know people's story, but it's just crazy, with, so many things. I mean, I think about also, what happened in Harlem a couple weeks ago, where there were the 2 cops that got killed. I should know their names. And one's last name was Rivera, and I think the other one was Mora. And I don't remember which one was which. I think Rivera might have been the 22-year-old. That was very close to home. I'm from Harlem. I'm from the border of Harlem and Washington Heights. That happened on a main street in Harlem. What is a precinct over there, right? Main Street in Harlem, where there's always people walking up and down that street. And to think that these 2 cops, 22 and 27 years old, Dominicans, from the area, from further uptown, who, responded to a domestic call of a mother who called the police on her son because of a domestic issue. And they get shot and killed by this man. Right? And to think, and then one of the professors of one of I think the 27-year-old, he was a professor at John Jay College, which is right next to my high school. He was saying that he was asking, I think it was Mora, when he was in college, asking him, why do you want to be a cop? And he kept saying, because he really wanted to help people. He really wanted to help people. The other one became a cop, the 22-year-old, who I think was only on the force for a few months, said that he wanted to become a cop because he was from Inwood. Inwood is a neighborhood all the way to the northernmost part of the island of Manhattan. You have Harlem, you have Washington Heights, and then you have Inwood. Washington Heights and Inwood is like basically a Dominican neighborhood. And he's from Inwood, and he talked about the tension between the NYPD and Inwood, and he wanted to help the community. So that was his motivation to become a police officer, which is the reason why when I've known people who just have this fuck the police kind of attitude, period, point blank, they just feel like all cops are fucked up and fuck them all and I don't care what happens to them. I think that's wrong, because there are people who become cops because they want to help and they want to bridge that gap in the community. So to me, it was incredibly sad that they died for that, and it's like most police officers, don't die, but being a cop, you don't know what kind of people are crazy as hell, especially in America. So you never know what you're approaching, and they have to approach shit. When everybody else is running, they got to approach shit. So if those two cops didn't die, who knows? That dude might have shot his mother. We don't know. But when you think about, to put yourself in his wife's shoes, that happened to her husband, and having to deal with that level of trauma, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know. Life can be super traumatic. So for me, the way I live life, I'm not like on some super paranoid shit, but I move carefully, okay? Like, I like safety. I don't like to do things that's going to increase my chances of like getting killed, you know what I'm saying? Or like, I'm not riding on motorcycles. You will not see me on a motorcycle, because if you get into a motorcycle accident, if you survive that, you will be fucked up for the rest of your life. And like, I'm not about that life, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not doing things that's gonna like getting fake, vax cards and putting my name in a system, because people are doing stuff like that. I'm not doing that, and then somebody gets busted and now I'm going to jail. I'm not built for jail, okay? So I'm like careful about how I move with certain things, and even then we never know what can happen, right? But it's just, again, I said, to me, life is like a video game. When my dad taught me how to drive, he said, don't drive behind trucks. He told me, do not drive behind trucks. Do not drive next to trucks. Stay away from trucks. Either pass them or stay away from them. Because so many people die because of stuff that falls out of the back of trucks. My dad told me never pull over on the shoulder of the highway. That's dangerous. Whole families get wiped out like that. He told me if you're driving and you feel really tired, pull over and go to sleep. I don't care where you're going, because it takes a split second to fall asleep and then, you're dead. So when the first thing my dad told me when he taught me how to drive, he said to me, cars are lethal weapons. Okay, that was the first thing. And a lot of people don't treat cars like they're lethal weapons, okay? And so for me, I'm just not, if I'm in the passenger seat with somebody, I don't like people who are super distracted. I don't like people who are driving and looking at me. I'm like, keep your eyes on the road, pay attention. I'm just not about that, okay? Like, I'm not trying to get into accidents. I like safety, because the function of my body matters. I just said my goal in life is quantity and quality. I want to live a long time, but I want to have quality. And that starts with having the full function of my body, okay? Full functioning of my body. Like, I don't want to have any issues, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to engage in super risky behavior that could end up having that happen, So I'm just saying. So anyhow, with that being said, then I'm also thinking about like this Miss USA who just committed suicide in New York, which also is super disturbing to me, because where that happened at is right next to Port Authority, which is our major bus station, right? It's right by Times Square. That's a block where there's always people outside. There's always people outside on 42nd Street walking around. That shit happened at 7:15 in the morning. And to me, I'm just like, to jump out of the window. Like, how traumatic that is for the people who were downstairs, who might have seen that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just heartbreaking, because nobody ever knows what anybody's going through. But then it makes me wonder, like, sometimes, like, when people on medication, because sometimes medications can do that to people. They can take a certain medication and it messes up their brain chemistry, and then they kill themselves or they kill somebody else. That's a real thing. You think about Regina King's son, my heart breaks for her. And you could think, like, to me, again, I try not to ever judge people, but this is just an observation that I'm saying, right? From the outside looking in, you don't ever know what happened in somebody's life, right? But you could look at somebody and think they have all these things. And so even if something, bad happened, but you'll see people on the flip side, you'll see people who they lost their whole family in a fire and they don't kill themselves. You'll see people who they saw their parents get murdered when they were a child and they didn't kill themselves. Like people who go through super horrific shit. They're not usually the ones that kill themselves. And then a lot of times the people that kill themselves are the people that, on the outside looking in, they seem like they have a lot of things. Like you seem like you have a loving family and you seem like you were doing well, and I don't get it. So it's just very, very weird. And so it just all makes me think about the fact that mental health is complicated. A lot of people don't, I was listening to I think he might have been a psychiatrist. And he was saying that they're the only doctors that don't do scans of the organs that they're treating, right? So if somebody has a heart problem, you might get a heart scan. Or you got a lung problem, you might get lung scans, right? Or you got something going on with your uterus and they do, but with the brain, they'll be prescribing psychiatric meds and they didn't scan the brain because the reason why your brain might be this way is because when they look at how it's firing and what parts are being activated and they look at the structure, sometimes they can see this is what it is. And so when they're just prescribing psychiatric meds, like a one size fits all, because you might have 6 people with a certain psychiatric diagnosis, but they have it for 6 different reasons, which means they need 6 different treatments, right? And that's not how it's treated in psychiatry. They just throw drugs as the one size fits all. And that can happen in other fields of medicine, but it's really bad when it comes to the mental side of things. And, I don't know. But I'm just going to say, I just think about the fact that I think, I could never, because I've heard some horrific things from some people that have gone through things that I cannot imagine, right? So that's why I'm I don't want to judge people in any kind of way, but because some things that happen to people are so deep that they may not heal from it in this lifetime. But with that being said, I just think it's important for people to have certain tools. You ever think, what are your tools to help transform your energy? Okay, to help shake things off, help transform energy. I really believe in dance. Okay, this is the reason why people, you go to New Orleans and they dance at death. That's the reason why. I learned so much. I talk a lot about what I've learned from studying Haitian folkloric dance and also the dances of the diaspora period, especially in the Americas. But yeah. So, and even when I got into pole dance, I got into pole dance 10 years ago. Something really traumatic happened to me. And I got into pole dance to help take my mind off of it. Okay? Because the pole was so hard, I couldn't think about that when I was doing it. And after that, you get this whole adrenaline rush and your blood is flowing and testosterone and your hormones and you just feel better. It helped me transform. Right? Writing is something I've always done, even though writing has gotten me in trouble because there's times in my life that people have read my writing, which I don't like. That shit's not cool. But writing, okay? There are many times I feel like, I'm writing my journals for pages. And after that, I felt much better. A lot of things are much more clear. And the thing, too, that I like about journaling is that I can go back to things because you be forgetting shit. Like somebody might have pissed you off in the past and you kind of don't even remember what happened. You go back or ways that you felt, because sometimes people can just focus on the good with people. And you don't realize that bad with that person was too much of a red flag. And so you can go back and look and remember the bad too, okay? Be real with yourself. I think writing is really important for so many reasons, right? Then, like I said, I think for me, everybody's what it is. But for me, cannabis, another big thing, okay? I believe I'm into natural medicine. In my house, I don't have any pharmaceuticals. I don't have Tylenol. I don't have nothing from the drugstore. If I cut myself in here, if I burn myself in here, I ripped my nipple ring out in the pole a few years ago. here. Like, no matter what it is, I do not use, everything I use is natural, right? And so I'm not going to get into a cannabis medicine lecture right now, but there's a lot of ways that it helps to balance a lot of systems in your body, right? There's a lot of, there's a lot of ways, right? So that is another thing, that helps me. And then for me, I just really stay in a place of gratitude, because I feel like we all have things we don't like about ourselves, but I feel like it's important to always work on yourself and to always be thankful for what you do have, you know what I'm saying? Because I think if people don't do that, that's how they go down a path of, now they want to get all this surgery. And, I say that always work on yourself and be the best you could be. Like, some people aren't working on themselves and they're a hot, sloppy mess. That's a different story. I don't know about being proud of that, right? But if you're putting in the work to constantly work on yourself, okay, mentally and physically, and remember there's a connection. When you exert yourself physically, when you engage in intense physical activity, especially with complex movements, it really engages your mind as well, right? So there's that connection. I'm thankful, I have a family that loves me. Some people don't. So that's what I'm saying. There's levels to the trauma. But I know for me, I just stay in a place of gratitude that my body works, that, that I have love, I have food to eat, I have a warm place to live in, and it's like, okay, I might not have reached certain goals, but if we get stuck in that, that is, or people allow heartbreak to make them like want to kill themselves, or you can't allow that, because you have to have tools to deal with that, because that's promised to all of us at some point, right? And we just don't know. Life is mysterious, right? So I think it's really important for people to think about, like, what kind of transformation tools do I have to keep myself sane? And talk therapy helps, but it's also been shown that talk therapy sometimes just helps people to identify what their problem is. Doesn't always help them to heal from it. So it kind of depends. I guess it depends on what's going on with the person. And talk therapy for me doesn't need to be with a counselor or a therapist that I paid. I have friends. I got like a few best friends who know me very well, and they are very wise. And my talk therapy will be with them. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, it's like talking to a generic therapist who you don't know enough about me, and there's not enough time to talk about that. Like, there's people who know me for real, and for 10 plus, 15 plus years, you know what I'm saying? So I'd rather talk to them, but not everybody has that. But I do think talk therapy is important. And if people feel like they can't talk, then right, but you gotta let it out. You know what I'm saying? I think, I don't know. It's just a lot that I feel like, I don't know what this video was about. It was just a lot. I just feel like I had to talk about the mental health piece. I'm not a mental health expert. I've never suffered from mental health issues. Thankfully, a lot of that, but it's like I have for years just had systems in place to deal with certain things. And, but at the same time, like I said, there's levels to trauma, and I have heard people who have had some really horrific things happen where it's like some people have gone through things and you don't know what to say, and so there's levels to it. And so my heart goes out to everybody, and I try to be empathetic. And there are people who go through traumatic things and they turn into narcissists. That's a whole nother conversation, okay? And people say, again, when people say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that is not necessarily true. If what doesn't kill you makes you stronger only if you're doing the work, the reconstruction work for real. If not, what doesn't kill you can turn you into a subpar shell of yourself, okay, where you're barely functioning and barely present, okay, or it can turn you into a narcissistic individual. And a narcissistic individual, narcissism is not, people think it means that you're conceited and you're full of yourself. No, narcissism is a serious mental illness. And narcissists are horrible people to deal with. Nightmares of people, okay? Some people say there's no cure for narcissism, but it's a bad, mental disorder where they wreak a lot of havoc and they never see it. Just to be very brief, if you don't know what a narcissist is, I suggest you go to YouTube, look up some videos about narcissism, learn about them, because I hear a lot of people also having relationship conversations, and I'll hear men saying things like, I don't like talking to women, because I don't like telling women what's going on with me because they always use it against you. They always use it against you. And I'm thinking to myself, that sounds like a narcissist, not a woman, because I know men that do that. I've known men that have done that to me. You know what I'm saying? And you know why? Those men were narcissists. That's not just something that women do. You know what I'm saying? That's something you probably were dealing with narcissists and you didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people don't know it if they don't know what the signs are to look for. But narcissists, people who are narcissists, they usually have severe trauma. They usually got severe mommy daddy issues. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, narcissists are horrible. Yeah, it's a human issue, not a gender issue. Exactly. And there's certain ways to recognize narcissists when you know about them. A lot of times it make people fall in love because they wear a mask and they'll be praising you and they're so great and they're so wonderful. Sometimes the sex could be really amazing, and then all of a sudden they just change into another person and they're gaslighting you. But you fell in love with the person and you really genuinely believe this person cared about you. And so when the mask starts to come off, it's like the trickery. And that's when people get stuck in shit, when they say, oh, does the good outweigh the bad? The good outweighs the bad, right? But some of those bad things that happened were too bad. They were huge red flags. And then people break up and get back together. Something happens, it's even worse. There's certain cycles and things to recognize. I'm not going to get into a narcissistic lecture, but I'm just saying. It's important for people to be aware of recognizing those kind of people, because they will damage your spirit and your soul if you don't know how to heal yourself. Get your chi and your mojo back. For me, every single time I've gone through anything that has been heartbreaking, it has made me become a better version of myself. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get even doper. I'm going to get even flyer. I'm just going to get even stronger. Like, that's what I have to transform this energy. Because if you don't do that, if you don't take that energy and let it make you stronger, it's going to break you and make you weaker. And we're not trying to go backwards, right? Life is tough. This is the reason why playing sports is good, growing up. Because it teaches you to not give up. Keep your head in the game. Don't start getting lazy. Don't get a defeated mindset just because you're down. Don't start thinking, oh, I'm going to lose, and now you stop playing hard. No. Go hard or go home. Right? And so it's just, and then the other thing too is that I heard, I was listening to some sad stories that came up on my YouTube thing of little kids that have committed suicide, right? Because they're being bullied at school. And it seems to me that kids now are committing suicide a lot, okay? Now, there's multiple part reasons for that, because, I have my own thoughts about that. But then I also learned that, like, this EMF radiation, which is the radiation coming from our phones and coming from our Wi-Fi and all these machines around us, it causes a lot of problems, and especially causes problems with little kids, and can cause them to get depressed and have all these weird issues, right? So that also, I feel like, contributes to it. But I just feel like it's important to give kids tools to deal with that as well, okay? I remember when I was a kid, my dad always used to say to me, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me, right? So I remember times, this is what I'm talking about with putting things in perspective. I remember times when somebody might have said something to me that really hurt my feelings, and maybe like it almost broke my spirit. And then I said, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. And that perspective is like, dead ass, I'd rather you talk shit than to beat me up and then I'm bleeding and shit. Like, see, every kid gets made fun of a little bit. I never got bullied. Like, I was never like, I never dealt with like people like bullying me where I was like afraid to go to school, or I was getting beat up, or people were taking my lunch money. That never happened. But I just feel like sometimes bullies know who to pick on. They know who to go after. So me and my twin brother, I have a twin brother, and we were both like really skinny. My twin brother was really skinny. My dad taught my brother how to fight. My dad, like literally, he had boxing gloves, taught him how to fight. They used to be boxing all the time. But because my brother was really skinny, like this one kid was picking on him one day, and just kept. We might have been like in the first grade. This dude was picking on my brother all day, and then my brother got into a fight with him, and beat the boy up, and the boy never bothered him again, and that was it, right? And so with me, it never even got to that. Like nobody ever messed with me that bad. Where I know people who really got bullied. A lot of times, those people were very soft spoken, And the real thing is with bullies, you have to learn how to stand up to them. You know what I'm saying? You have to stand up to them. But just on the level of getting made fun of, right? I feel like when I put that in perspective, the sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's just words. That's just words, whatever. Like, if you hit me in the head with a brick, that's so much worse. Then I really would be hurt. So just putting that into perspective helped me. And that's what I do even now in life, where I have to put things into perspective. And like I said, there's levels to trauma, because some people go through some shit that I really don't know. I do not know how they come back from that, okay? But I know for me, in the levels of trauma and things I've experienced, I've just, putting things into perspective is what helps me to, because things can always be worse. And there are people in a lot worse situations. And it just kind of helps me to, kind of find the peace and the gratitude within it all, So I just think it's important for people to have these kind of things, for people to talk to kids about these kind of things, like, teach them to stand up for themselves, fill them with self-esteem, tell them about the world. This world is this one mother, she said that, her son was bullied. He was 10, he committed suicide, and she said he was bullied to death. But she said she never had a conversation with him about the roughness of the world, or even being a black boy in the world, or any of that. And to me, you should be, because she was like, he was 10, and she didn't want to talk to him about that being so young. But to me, you should. The first time my dad ever talked to my brother about getting pulled over by the police, we were 9 years old. Like, we weren't even thinking about driving. And my dad was already telling my brother at 9 what to do if he got pulled over by the police. And so I just feel like these kind of conversations, these conversations about safety and what to do in certain situations, it's important for people to have those conversations with kids. Even when it comes to being molested. I remember my grandmother always used to tell me all the time, if anybody touches you inappropriately, I don't care who it is, tell me. I don't care how they threaten you, tell me. I don't care what they say. Like, my grandmother used to always tell me that. Thankfully, I wasn't molested, but so many people were. And there are people who they told and nobody believed them, or nobody ever told, like nobody had these conversations about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. Like, that's important. You know what I'm saying? That's also important. And we can't choose our parents. So unfortunately, some people just have fucked up parents, and that's just the sad reality, another harsh reality of life. There's a lot of harsh realities of life. And this is the reason why I say I'm optimistic, but I'm realistic. I'm not pessimistic. I'm realistic with an optimistic spin, but you have to stay present in realism though. Yeah, kids do need, these kids now I feel like are super sensitive. Because like even dealing with the internet, now these kids are online from being a kid, but as an adult, I deal with freaking people stalking me and doing shit and saying things and causing problems, and I'm not going to allow any of that to make me kill myself. You know what I'm saying? But if you can't get through childhood stuff, like you definitely, how are you going to deal with it as an adult, especially since their whole life is online? Like, it's just crazy, But, you bullied from 8 to 14 and you can never have a conversation with your parents? Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, the one thing I know that was hard for boys is that, fathers usually told their sons, if you don't win the fight, you're going to get beat when you get home. Like, I remember a lot of fathers said that. Like, it was kind of like that type of thing, like this tough love. Yeah, it is worse now due to social media, but I don't know why people have their kids on social media. I don't think kids should be on social media. I don't, And I think parents nowadays, they care so much about what their kids want. And I feel like old school parents didn't care what we wanted. They'd be like, I don't care who's doing what or what you want. Like, I definitely think that kids should not be on social media. But anyhow, I think I made my point. I'm in this conversation. I just was thinking about just the whole mental health thing and just thoughts, that were on my mind about just all the craziness that's been going on, and how, just my 2 cents of how I think that it's important to have a few ways, 3 or 4 ways that you transform energy. Okay, that you shake stuff off of you, get it off your energy fields. A few ways, and I'm always going to say that I think part of that needs to involve intense physical exertion. Intense physical exertion. There's things that intense physical exertion does for your mind and your spirit and your energy fields that you can't get from sitting in yoga poses and taking deep breaths. Okay? That you can't get from anything else. Okay, so I'm gonna just put that in there. I think that's important. All right. Yeah. Rest in peace to Miss. She was Miss USA. Very, very, very sad. She seemed like a beautiful woman that was very intelligent. And I've never been, like a huge fan of beauty pageants. But one thing I do like about them is that you're seeing brains and beauty with that, because those women are beautiful, but they're also very smart, which kills the stereotype of you have to be smart and dumb. Because Miss USA, she was an attorney. And the thing is that her mother was Miss North Carolina when she was a little girl. She was 11. And then she was Miss North Carolina. And then now she was Miss USA. And it's very sad. Her mom, I think, is like 54, 52 years old. Her mom is young. That's young to be losing your daughter in that way. It's horrible. And so, my heart goes out to her family for sure. So I'm going to end this conversation. Thank you for listening. Just wanted to talk about those things. What kind of things do you do to help transform energy? Have you ever thought about that? And if you have some things, please share. I think it's really, really important, to think about. What kind of things do you have to transform energy if you go through something traumatic, to help, keep yourself sane and level-headed, and to shake it off of you, okay? Because you don't want to go through trauma and just close up and not deal with it, because it can leave imprints in our energy fields that can be activated later and that we can pass on to future generations. So think about those things and share if you want to. And thank you for listening, and have a good day. Bye-bye.